Hi, my name is Sheira Kahn. I'm a marriage and family therapist, a coach, and psychology educator. I've been teaching my method for ending disordered eating to clients and clinicians since 2001, and I'm very happy to share with you today this introduction. Eating can be so difficult when it's like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. I'm not supposed to have carbs. How many calories did I just burn off? Oh, crap, look at that number on the scale. And then the body hatred that goes along with it. It's draining and depressing. Sometimes when people come to see me, they feel like they've been failures in this area of their lives and it's never going to get better. I know what that's like because I had bulimia for 5 years and then I hated my body for another 10 years after that. I was desperate to get out of the cycle of restricting, binging, and purging. I tried everything, but all the conventional wisdom about healthy eating gave me was more self-hatred and worse binges. It was only when I blended common sense health guidelines with tools and concepts from outside the conventional wisdom that I got free. To this day, I love my body and I eat whatever I want. I want this for you. So badly, I want this for you. Would you believe me if I told you there's a way to eat that's so much easier than counting carbs, calories, and weight? You might feel like you're cheating. That relaxation and enjoyment are the keys to taking in the right amount of food for your body. I'm going to show you how this works with the science of psychology and examples from real life. Welcome to an introduction to Eat in Peace, a method for natural eating. In the winter of 1981, I ate an entire sweet potato pie. I could not fathom this behavior at the time, and all the so-called experts could say about it was, don't do that. Well, no kidding. It wasn't until I was in grad school that I found something that could explain this mysterious behavior. Freud's theory of personality helped me understand why I could not control myself around food: the ego, the superego, and the id. It sounds academic and kind of sterile: ego, superego, id. But these three parts are all too real when it comes to disordered eating, and human suffering for that matter. People don't function well unless every part not only does its own job, but also cooperates with the other parts. In clinical practice, I observed that the different eating behaviors, restricting, overeating, purging, and obsessive thinking, they corresponded to different forms of non-cooperation between the ego, the superego, and the id. What this means is, in order to take charge of your eating, you have to take charge of your psychology. Today's mini course, therefore, contains a brief psychology lesson so you can start learning the foundational concepts of how to eat in peace. Here's an overview. When talking about the psyche, we use the word part as a shorthand, so we say parts of the psyche, but it's more accurate to think of the ego, superego, and id as channels for moving psychic energy and as categories of information. Channels and categories. Keep in mind the concept of moving energy through the psyche because eating behaviors are determined by which part has the energy and how it's using that energy. By the way, the concept of moving psychic energy is similar to how qi is understood in Chinese medicine. And Freud himself admired Chinese medicine and philosophy. Keep in mind also the concept of categories of information. Each part of the psyche collects information related to its category and the special responsibilities therein. The ego is in charge of leadership, the superego is in charge of guidance, the id is in charge of aliveness. Each of these categories is equally important. You cannot rank them. Remember that because every part must both do its own job and cooperate with the other parts, or the psyche falters. When the parts are doing their jobs and working together, that's when you feel motivated and centered, and eating is peaceful and easy. There's no hierarchy in the psyche. When they're not cooperating, that's when things get difficult. In school, they taught us that the parts should not be in conflict with each other. It sounds mild when you read it in a textbook, but an internal conflict is not mild. When the parts are in conflict, the nervous system gets triggered and it's unpleasant at the very least. My clients report anxiety, depression, despair, and are subject to a running stream of vitriolic internal criticism. Eating or restricting and everything in between are attempts to get relief from feeling that way. I know that's why I used to binge. Eating was an island of enjoyment in an otherwise harsh world. I kept eating because I did not want to get off that island and go back into the harshness. That's why making it relatively pleasant and calm inside is the key to recovery. So it's not a trip back into a hellish reality when you stop eating. Next, we will talk about each category, its jobs, and the foundational concepts about eating that arise from what we learn. Oh, and for those of you who do internal family systems, my use of the word part is similar in the sense that it describes an aspect of the self, but IFS has more specific parts in it than this method, which only has three: the ego, the superego, and the id. We will start with the ego. Ego means I in Latin and refers to our main sense of self. The ego's jobs are to mediate, oversee, organize, and house the different parts of the psyche. Mediate, oversee, organize, and house. You can tell from those jobs that the ego is in charge of the executive/leadership category in the psyche. Speaking of house or house, one of my favorite ways of teaching ego is through the 1939 movie, The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy's sense of self is symbolized by a house. Inside the cyclone at the beginning of the movie, we see that her psyche is under construction as the house is tossed, and memories, family attachments, and fears go by her window. Let's watch the clip. Once in Oz, her quest becomes to find her way home, to reconstitute herself and arrive at a place of safety and love. Both the house and the iconic words, "There's no place like home," express the human yearning for a safe and secure home inside. In other words, a healthy ego. The word ego can have a negative connotation, but a healthy ego truly is a thing of beauty. When the ego is the right size in relation to the other parts and is able to do its jobs, that's when our best self comes out. We feel calm, act kindly, and we're flexible, yet we have a certain strength of clarity of thought. We say things to ourselves like, "You can do it. Keep going, things will work out," and "I care about you." We eat when we're hungry and we stop when we're full. Let's take a moment for you to think of a time that you felt calm and clear inside. The four jobs I listed before, mediate, oversee, organize, and house, they're all vital to the health of the psyche, but the job that has the most impact on eating is mediating. When the ego is healthy, it is strong enough to keep both the superego and the id in check so they don't trigger the nervous system. It breaks up their fight so they can each do their jobs. When the ego is unhealthy, that means it's too weak
to keep the superego and id in line. The superego can dominate, depriving the person of love and food. The id can also dominate and act out, perhaps by eating too much food. Third, the id and the superego can join forces and dominate the person's eating through a series of compulsive behaviors and depressed resignation. Keeping the ego energized and healthy so it can enforce boundaries with the superego and the id is crucial for normal eating patterns. This understanding of how ego works leads to foundational concept number 1. Like a safe home, a healthy ego is the psychological goal and the basis for eating in peace. It's like that last scene in the movie when Dorothy is surrounded by her loved ones all in the same room. There really is no place like home, when the parts of our psyche are present and accounted for and are getting along. As mentioned, it's in this internal atmosphere that we eat the right amount of food for our body naturally, because we're not triggered and we're at our best. This doesn't mean we have to heal all our trauma before we can eat peacefully, but that we take steps to create a calm environment to the best of our ability whenever we do eat. Let's talk about the superego. Superego means over-I in Latin. In school, they taught us that the superego is our conscience, a moralistic voice that tells us right from wrong to help us fit in with society. That's true, but there's a lot more to it than that. So let's learn 4 facts about the superego that will tell us about how it works and its role in eating. Fact number 1. Here's what makes the superego tick. Attachment relationships are crucial to human survival. When we are disconnected from loved ones or don't have reliable loved ones close by, the nervous system reacts as though one's physical survival is being threatened. It goes into the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. The superego's main job, therefore, is to guide us to maintain and improve our attachment relationships. In other words, the superego's goal is to make sure we are someone that our loved ones will connect with. Folks with narcissistic parents, your superego had an impossible task. Just saying. So this is why the superego is focused on doing things right or looking good. Its intention is to form us into someone who will have secure connections. Fact number 2, the superego functions through the mind. Its currency is information, and its actions are calculation, comparison, monitoring, and measurement. Sounds like dieting, right? But I'm getting ahead of myself. It checks on us. Are we meeting the standards of a test at school, of sticking to a food plan, or a fitness ideal? These are all tracked by the superego. Fact number 3, the superego is supposed to be a helper, not the leader. It works best as an advisor and suggestion giver, not the chief of the psyche. It should have less psychic energy or less power than the ego, and it shouldn't be mean to the id. Like the dictators and tyrants of history, it is axiomatic that when the superego has too much power, it becomes aggressive. Remember that, it's really important. Fact number 4, the superego is a parental voice. Sometimes it parrots how our parents spoke to us, but more accurately, it expresses how we were related to emotionally. Its words and the attitude it takes toward our vulnerable parts capture the attachment relationships of our history. Let's combine these 4 facts about the superego to help us understand its role in disordered eating. Quick review. Fact number 1, its goal is to promote reliable attachment relationships. Number 2, it functions through the mind, especially as a calculator and monitor. Fact number 3, it's meant to be a helper, not the leader. And number 4, the superego is a parental voice. These facts combine to create fertile ground for disordered eating, and also the facts provide clues to recovery. Let's take a look at how. The fact that the superego works through the mind is extremely pertinent to eating. Every time we calculate carbs, count steps or calories, weigh ourselves, follow food rules, or compare our bodies to an ideal, it makes the superego stronger, like exercising a muscle. This brings up that the superego is meant to be a helper, not the leader of the psyche. When the superego gets bigger by following a food program, then it becomes aggressive. It rejects the body by saying in so many words, you are not acceptable, you need to change. It does this in the form of judgments and insults. Since the superego is a parental voice, this means that whenever it says we need to lose weight or we shouldn't eat something, the body, which is part of the id or the child part of the psyche, feels rejected. The judgment of the body and control of eating creates an ongoing insecure attachment relationship between the parental part and the child part. This has two immediate impacts on eating. The first is that it produces a feeling of deprivation, being deprived of love in specific. That makes a person want to restrict if they think restricting will bring more love their way, or overeat since they feel deprived. The second impact is that the insecure relationship between the superego and the id triggers a nervous system response. The superego getting on the id's case is experienced as a disconnection, and as mentioned, disconnection from loved ones is equated with a threat to survival. So then people are in the position of restricting or overeating to try and calm the nervous system, to experience an island of warmth and brightness in a cold, dark world. It just happens that The Wizard of Oz has a great illustration of how the superego works. You will see an example of going for help and getting insulted, as well as some of the other facts I just mentioned. And yes, I love using this movie to teach about psychology. The wizard is the great and powerful Oz, whom everyone looks to and dreams of to help them with their biggest problems. The thing is, when Dorothy and her friends finally do get an audience with him, the wizard becomes scary and hurls insults. To the scarecrow, he says, "You billowing bale of bovine fodder." This is what happens with the superego in someone who has disordered eating. People turn to their inner guide for help, and instead of being constructive, it says, "You are not acceptable. Go change yourself and then come back. Maybe I'll approve of you then." In the clip, we will see this exact move when the wizard insults the scarecrow, the tin man, and the lion when they come to him for help. So let's watch a clip of the first audience with the wizard.
Come on. Forward! Tell me when it's over. Look at that. Look at that. I want to go home. I am Oz, the great and powerful. Who are you? Who are you?
If you please, I am Dorothy, the small and meek. We've come to ask you.
Silence!
Oh, Jimmy Cricket.
The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come. Step forward, Tin Man. You dare to come to me for a heart, do you? You clinking, clanking, clattering collection of colliginous junk?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor. You see, a while back, we were walking down the yellow brick road, and...
Quiet!
Later in the film, when Dorothy brings the broom back to the wizard, having nearly perished at the hands of the Wicked Witch, and she asks him, "Will you help us now?" The wizard essentially tells them they have to do more tasks. "Change and then come back. Maybe then I will help you." just like in disordered eating. Anyone who's been in the grips of anorexia or a restrictive phase will tell you it's never enough for the superego. You could always lose more weight or do more exercise from its perspective. In the movie, the characters all say, "We've done what you said." And Dorothy very accurately points out, "If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises." By the way, Dorothy telling off the wizard is an example of the ego, represented by Dorothy, mediating the superego when it was abusing its power over the more vulnerable characters. Thank you, Dorothy. Once they have started to stand up to the wizard, this makes way for the next step toward getting home, exposing the wizard for the humbug he really is. Let's watch the clip when they bring the broom back to the wizard.
Please, sir, we've done what you told us. We brought you the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. We melted her.
Oh, you liquidated her, eh? Very resourceful.
Yes, sir. So we'd like you to keep your promise to us, if you please, sir.
Not so fast. Not so fast. I'll have to give the matter a little thought. Go away and come back tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, but I want to go home now.
You've had plenty of time already.
Yeah. Do not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz. I said come back tomorrow.
If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises.
Do you presume to criticize the great Oz? You ungrateful creatures think yourselves lucky that I'm giving you audience tomorrow instead of 20 years from now.
Oh,
The great Oz has spoken.
oh,
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The great Oz has spoken.
Who are you?
Oh, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
You are? I
yes.
don't believe you.
No, I'm afraid it's true. There's no other wizard except me.
you humbug!
Yes, it's exactly so. I'm a humbug.
Oh, you're a very bad man.
Oh, no, my dear. I'm a very good man. I'm just a very bad wizard.
In this scene, standing up to the wizard happens in the same moment with the revelation that his power is false. The curtain is pulled back by Toto, I might add, our id representative, and we see the wizard's fearsome power, quote unquote, is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. Then Dorothy says he's a very bad man. He says, "Oh no, I'm a good man. I'm just a very bad wizard." This speaks to how the superego is not meant to be great and powerful. It's supposed to be a humble helper, which is what the wizard becomes in the next scene when, as a man, he gives the medals out to the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion. So the way this translates to eating is that when the superego is the right size and doing its job, it gives us guidance, suggestions, and approval. It says things like, check if your stomach's getting too full, I don't want you to feel sick, or time to replenish the snack supplies so you don't get famished at work. When it gets too big, it says mean, disparaging things that shame us and trigger the nervous system. Instead of, check if you're full, I don't want you to get sick, it says, you're a pig, you can't control yourself. And instead of, time to replenish the snack supply, it says, don't eat any snacks, you're overweight, and I don't care if you're hungry. The upshot is that our superego can't be trusted when it's too big. When the superego is the right size, it's like the good cop, protect and serve. When it's too big, it's the bad cop that becomes abusive. It's very sad that instead of having a loving guide we can turn to, many of us have an aggressive inner tyrant making false promises and attacking with loud put-downs. Maybe this happened with our loved ones. Parents, partners, and friends who were supposed to be there for us instead have let us down or turned on us. So this is like getting some very bad news. It takes bravery to see the truth of these betrayals. It can leave one feeling lost and vulnerable, as when Dorothy sits down after the hot air balloon doesn't work, and she says, now I'll never get back to Kansas. If you're listening and considering this, then you might be feeling brave and vulnerable too. Let's take a minute to make a loving space for whatever's happening. So this information about the superego brings us to foundational concept number 2. If the superego is too big, it can make false promises, hurt you, and trigger restricting and overeating behaviors. If it's the right size, the superego can support and guide you to find your way home. These realizations about the superego are sad, but there's a lot of optimism here too. By pulling back the curtain, as we are doing by seeing the superego for what it is, we are bringing it in line as a helper, just like with the wizard in the movie. This means we are one step closer to home and to our true source of power, which we will talk about in the next segment. Now we arrive at the id. Id means it in Latin. In school, we learned that the id is in charge of the body and the instincts, that it's the animal part of us. That's true, but the id is much more than that. Here's the best way I can introduce the id.
Come on. Take your body, shake it up, break the bone, break it up, pour some sugar on me. In the name of love, pour some sugar on me. Come on, fire me up, pour some sugar on me. Get it up. Sweet from my head to my feet. Yeah.
Now you've met my id. I'm wondering what your id is like. So you can see that the id is the alive, optimistic, creative part that keeps us motivated and engaged with life. Is it a troublemaker sometimes? Yes. Do we need to learn to manage it? Yes. But is it the rogue bad guy it usually gets accused of being? No. In fact, the id is nothing less than exalted as far as its role in the psyche. I will explain. First, some more info about the id. The id is the category of the psyche that channels our emotions. Trauma is recorded in all areas of the psyche, but especially the id, because the id includes the body and the inner children. So, the id holds our most vulnerable experiences and parts. When Freud was taught in my day, we learned that the superego is needed to tame the animalistic tendencies of the id. Fair enough, but somehow the equally important counterpoint was not taught at the time, that the id is needed to balance the depleting tendencies of the superego and keep the psyche vitalized. Similarly, when clients come to see me, they're usually mad at the id, and they feel that the id is out of control with eating. They want psychology to help them get it in line. Aggrandizing the superego over the id, giving it credit for being mature and intellectual, is part of a general misunderstanding that I would like to clear up. Overall, the id gets the blame for things that happen because it's the part that acts out and is more visible. We blame the body for gaining weight and the id for wanting to eat bad foods, quote unquote, or eat too much. We point the finger at the id for wanting to have sex, sometimes, perhaps, again, in quotes, in the wrong ways or with the wrong people. We dislike the id for having troublesome emotions that can slow down productivity, or for an inner child that is too needy. These are the ways that we have disdain for the id. So the id is the part we see that wants to drink or do the drugs. It's funny because id means it in Latin, as I said. So even the language is like, you're it, you did it, it's your fault. The id is an easy target. In fact, it is usually the superego who is the instigator behind these behaviors. In my 2+ decades of clinical work, in only 2 cases was the person's id overeating without provocation from the superego. In all my other clients, the superego was behind the scenes, provoking the id with put-downs, deprivation, or both. The id is like the bear, and the superego is the person poking the bear. You keep poking the bear, and eventually it will rear up and growl. So we all focus on taming the bear, but all we had to do was stop that person from poking it, and the bear would be quiet. People get better long-term results for ending disordered eating when they stop blaming the id and focus instead on getting the superego back in line. The superego is the part that needs to be tamed, so it can be a helpful contributor instead of a provocateur. There's another secret about the id that is not widely known, and for which the much maligned id is not properly honored. Freud determined that the id supplies psychic energy to the rest of the system. The id supplies psychic energy to the rest of the system. Psychic energy is his way of saying life force and is similar to qi in Chinese medicine. There are huge and beautiful implications to this. This means the id is precious, not only because it is the category that hosts our emotions, our body, and our inner children. The id brings in the life force itself. You can think of it as the pipeline to a power greater than ourselves, supplying vitality to the rest of the soul. The tree takes in water through the roots, giving life to the organism. Humans take in energy through the id. It's like our root. When the id is integrated, so the power can flow in our psyche, in other words, when that pipeline is open, that's when we feel a sense of aliveness and optimism. The colors seem brighter. We have enough energy to do our tasks, and challenges seem surmountable. Our eating is calm and regulated. Perhaps you can feel it as I talk about it. Think about letting the id in for a minute here. By contrast, when the pipeline is closed down or depleted, we lack motivation, we feel sad, and we don't have the will to go on. Talk about self-love. The fact that the most base part of ourselves is in the same category as the most exalted part means we have an imperative not to reject our bodies, our vulnerable selves, or our inner children. It's a call to unity, starting with us. This leads us to foundational concept number 3. The key to a healthy ego and to healthy eating, therefore, is making sure the id is supported and that pipeline is open. There's a scene at the end of The Wizard of Oz that illustrates this. Let's take a look at how Dorothy's full embrace of herself through the movie finally empowers her to find her way home. So we'll watch the clips.
You don't need to be helped any longer. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas.
I have.
Then why didn't you tell her before?
Because she wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn it for herself.
What have you learned, Dorothy?
Well, I think that it wasn't enough just to want to see Uncle Henry and Auntie Em. And it's that if I ever go looking for my heart's desire again, I won't look any further than my own backyard. Because if it isn't there, I never really lost it to begin with. Is that right?
That's all it is.
But that's so easy. I should have thought of it for you.
I should have felt it in my heart.
No, she had to find it out for herself. Now those magic slippers will take you home in 2 seconds.
Oh, Toto too?
Toto too.
Oh, now?
Whenever you wish.
Oh, dear. That's too wonderful to be true. There's no place like home.
Wake up, honey.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no
Dorothy. Dorothy, dear. It's Aunt Em, darling.
Oh, Auntie Em, it's you.
Yes, darling.
Hello there. Anybody home? I just dropped by because I heard the little girl got caught in a big...
Well, she seems all right now.
Yeah, she got quite a bump on the head. We kind of thought there for a minute she was going to leave us.
Oh.
But I did leave you, Uncle Henry. That's just the trouble. And I tried to get back for days and days.
There, lie quiet now. You just had a bad dream.
Sure. Remember me?
Your old pal, Hunk?
Oh.
Me? Hickory? You couldn't forget my face, could you?
But it wasn't a dream. It was a place. And you, and you, and you, and you were there.
Oh.
But you couldn't have been, could you?
Oh, we dream lots of silly things when we...
No, Aunt Em. This was a real, truly live place. And I remember that some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful. But just the same, all I kept saying to everybody was, I want to go home. And they sent me home. Doesn't anybody believe me?
Of course we believe you, though.
Oh, but anyway, Toto, we're home. Home. And this is my room. And you're all here. And I'm not going to leave here ever, ever again. Because I love you all. And, oh, Auntie Em, there's no place like home.
Through the characters and adventures, we see how Dorothy not only accepts aspects of herself, but she also faces her trauma and fears. It starts with Toto. Nothing comes between me and my dog is her attitude in the beginning when the grown-ups want to take Toto from her. With Toto representing the animal part of us, I see Dorothy's embrace of her dog as a commitment not to exile the id. Then she wakes up and befriends her different centers, the mind, Scarecrow, the heart, Tin Man, and the body, the Cowardly Lion. After that, she sifts through the effects of disconnection from her parental figures. This takes the form of face-offs with the Wicked Witch and the Wizard. After all these different ways of sorting herself out, then and only then is Dorothy able to realize her true power, a power which was with her the whole journey. In the final scene, she speaks of this self-acceptance when she declares to Glinda that if she ever wants to go home again, she need look no further than her own backyard. Finally, we see her return to a state of connection and security when her loved ones surround her in her room back in Kansas, and she intones, "There's no place like home." She thought the wizard was the source of power that would help her get home, but it is through welcoming in the various parts of herself that Dorothy realizes the power comes through her, not outside of her. Similarly with eating, we think the superego has the answers to healthy eating and to making ourselves lovable, but it is in fact through listening to the id and integrating the different aspects of ourselves that we are able to eat calmly and experience love. When we are upset and the nervous system is dysregulated, that is when we seek peace through overeating or restricting. That's why peace is in the title of this course. Peace is what people want. To be clear, it's not that we need to work through all of our trauma in order to recover from disordered eating. I'm still working through mine, but we need to make a commitment to stop the fighting and the rejection inside so we have a calm nervous system as much as possible. This is what obviates the need for overeating and restricting. This brings us back around to foundational concept number 1. A peaceful, safe inner state or healthy ego is the foundation for natural, normal eating. And it's another way of saying a home inside. In that state, the peaceful practices of meditative eating take hold. Meditative eating and calming the psyche then reinforce each other, and the eating behaviors lose their pull naturally over time. I can't wait to teach you more steps to calming your psyche and the building blocks of meditative eating in the full Eat in Peace course. In the meantime, I'm glad you have this introduction because healthy eating starts and stops with what is happening in your psychology and your nervous system. I do hope you feel your own preciousness more than when you first started listening today. If you are closer to seeing that compulsive eating behaviors are a product of too much superego, and that the part of yourself that you're frustrated with is in fact valuable, then you have begun to lay the foundation for eating in peace.
To join my mailing list or get in touch, and for more info, including links to articles and podcasts, please go to www.sheirakahn.com or www.eatinpeace.love. That's eatinpeace.love. Thanks for your interest in your own healing and in this work. See you soon.